Greetings, my friends. This is Archanis, and as you may have noticed, today we are joined by a special guest. This is my friend Matthew of Fate and Flourish.
Flourish or Fate.
Flourish or Fate games, and I feel quite privileged to be able to have him here because Matthew, in addition to just being a very fun person to hang around with who has GM'd many different games, has also a plethora of experience now the processing, developing a TTRPG and now a second TTRPG as well, which is not finished yet, but nearing there.
Yeah, and I'm aiming to get it out by summer this year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I have also had the privilege of being able to play test both of those games so far. So I can verify that they were very entertaining to play through. So Matthew, who are you and what is your gaming company?
Hi, I'm Matthew. I publish games under the name Flourish or Fate. I currently have a game called Dybbuks and Dreidels out. It is a game that is inspired by Jewish folklore, fairly rules light. If you've ever played a Powered by the Apocalypse game, it's similar to that, but I've reformulated the rules quite a bit to fit with playing with dreidels instead of dice. And the game that I'm currently working on is called Plans in a Tangle. You have 3 heist teams working, heisting things in the same museum on the same night, and it's all about consequences from one and interacting with other people. So someone uses a rope, they might leave it behind. Someone else might try to find it and then also be able to use it. Or someone sets off an alarm and the guards are now running around that room and they might run into someone else as well.
It's very cool stuff. And I think both of your games so far are very focused on collaborative narration as a central component to the game and being relatively rules light with components that should be pretty easy for anyone to pick up. You don't need specific minifigures or expensive rule books or anything like that.
Yeah, no, my magnum opus in the work does all of that stuff, but I've decided to start small, start with things made for one shots, things with very specific target audiences and gain experience from that to do something that can be used in 1,000 different ways.
Very cool stuff. So what is your background with TTRPGs and how did you get to the point where you're like, I'm going to make my own role-playing games?
I jokingly sometimes say I started designing my own out of spite. I've been playing D&D since about 2005. Not completely the whole time, but I love the system, but it definitely has areas that it doesn't do perfectly. So I've just been reading a bunch of design forums and what other games are out there and playing a few other games. And then Hanukkah, about 2 or 3 years ago, I was complaining about how terrible of a game Dreidel is as it's currently designed. And someone said, well, can you use it as a D4 in D&D?
That was me.
Yes.
I did that.
So,
because I believe it actually started with me mentioning to you when you said that, I had another friend who was thinking of a separate role-playing game that they were thinking of designing that used a dreidel as a die in a role-playing game.
Yeah, I think I looked that up because I think I was talking to Benji. Yeah, but whatever it is, I then had this idea of, well, what are the reasons why I think a dreidel would not work in D&D? It takes about 8 seconds to resolve instead of a die, which is almost instantaneous, and things like that. So from there, I came up with design parameters. I then said, I'm going to go to all of the forums and read through. I think at that time, I made sure to have at least 5 or 6 different systems under my belt, read through the rules completely, do a whole bunch of just playtests to see, does the idea work? I loved it. Refine it, do a whole bunch more playtests of it at different levels of refining. And playtests are not one thing. I have some very exploratory ones that are great, here's the one mechanic that I want us to focus on, or and some of here's the rule book, how well do I actually explain what's going on? And I've published this one. And while I'd written the book and like the company I was publishing through was getting back to me, I then said, here are all of my other ideas. So I made a giant document where I just put all of these loose mechanics. And since then, I've just been saying, anytime I have an idea, I write it down in my notebook. I then, when I get home, put it in that document. And it's very fun. And then sometimes I see things and say, I know exactly what setting also goes with this, and see if I could build a whole complete system from there. So that's sort of how I got to where I currently am.
Yeah. And I've definitely had quite a bit of insight into your process
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I also at several points came up to you, be like, hey, I have some ideas for
Yeah.
tabletop role playing games that I would like to start to develop.
Yeah.
And I was asking you about your process, and you
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
threw like 30 different messages over the course of maybe like 2 months at me.
Yeah, I pretty much did a
Excruciating detail.
summary of most of the games on here, and then just said like, once a week, okay, let's explain what makes Fate good. Let's explain what makes Burning Wheel good. What explain what makes Forged in the Dark games like good. And that, I think I also might have gone over my process of just at the top of all of my documents when I'm actually like building a full game, leaving out these are the design parameters that I'm going for. Like this one, I want to encourage all as many roles to be collaborative as possible. This one, I want things to be fast. This one, I want everyone to use bits of their backstory. So then designing mechanics around how do I build them.
So earlier you were saying that part of what inspired you was making a game out of spite.
Yes.
So I can make assumptions, though you can elaborate more in depth, that we've had several discussions about where other systems like fall short. And is that part of what kind of inspired you to make your own games?
Absolutely. I mean, every game will have something that it's not good at. Like for example, with D&D, I find D&D is pretty good at a lot of things and not excellent at anything, which, makes a really good campaign if you could like keep on varying it between, are we doing a more heist thing? Are we doing a more social encounter? Are we doing a combat encounter? And I went through that phase that all indie designers go through of saying, this is why I hate D&D. Come out the other side saying, every system has good things. There's a reason that it is so well loved, including I love it. I play it all the time. And that is getting to understand what makes D&D work. And that is people like this sort of mechanical progression where the combat's a little bit crunchy and the social encounters are much more improv-y and the rolling is there, much less frequently and much more at the discretion of the DM. And that's great. If you want, much more, what if every single bit of character growth were mechanized? Burning Wheel is one of those games that I haven't actually played because it is impossible to get someone to read a book.
A tome. Yeah.
And specifically, I say, you don't have to read all of it. The first third is the rules. The second third is all of the little, indexes of, what you could do. And the last third is sort of optional rules. And I'm like, you only need to read 120 of the pages. No.
And actually, that's a good segue into the fact that you will probably see Matthew across several of these videos because, as you can see, he has a lot of knowledge in these areas. And we're going to be going over several different topics, including looking at different game systems, looking at how you can modify your game, other things like that, looking at the individual games that he has either made or is in the process of making. So you can also look forward to seeing a lot more of Matthew. But that being said, what is it like being a published TTRPG designer?
It's so much fun. I think the biggest compliments I get are people who have played my games who haven't met me yet. I was talking to a board game store in New York City that now actually sells my games, and someone said, actually, this person who works there has played it and loved it. I was talking to, again, it is based on Jewish folklore, so I was talking to people putting together specifically a convention around, Jewish nerdy themes. And they said, we looked at it. This is exactly our kind of people. I couldn't make it to that. But Um, that's just such a lovely feeling. I'm quite an extrovert. I know a lot of people, and when I'm meeting new people, sometimes they're like, "This was a great conversation." I'm going back to wherever I'm visiting from. Like, I want to see how you think, and I could be like, "Yeah, well, now I have it written down," and that's very fun. It's wonderful. Specifically, one of the TTRPG bookshops. The TTRPG bookshop in our area. There aren't any else that are that specialized in it's just TTRPGs. And they sell local creators at all of the conventions that they go to. And every single convention, they say that this is sold out. So actually, right after
Wow.
this, I am doing another delivery of 8 more because they're getting ready for PAX East.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What have been the challenges of being a TTRPG game designer?
I hate sales and marketing. Getting the word out is one of those things that I say, I have a day job. The day job pays a lot better than being an indie designer who has sold, I guess now, like 136 copies of my game, which is,
Wow.
yeah. Like, again, wonderful thing. It means that I've used all of the money from that to, pay off the artists for my next game. I'm about to start a Kickstarter for it to see if, it's good. And then I say, hey, actually, I could get a lot more art than this. So yeah, that's been a challenge because I'm like, I'll just rely on word of mouth. And luckily the word of mouth has been really good. I have made it a goal to read through a lot of systems. I think research is always wonderful. And, reading through books like this is a lot slower than reading through novels. And so
Right.
I try to, read through a certain number of books every year. And I said, why has it slowed down the past 3 years?
Also, I'm sure reading something like Fate Condensed is a lot easier than Burning Wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially because I've played Fate, with someone else reading the rules and only telling me, what I needed to know. And so
Sure.
I knew how to read it. And I found from some of these, rereading them, you read it, it takes, a month to read it because you're going page by page trying to say, can I figure out these rules? And then you reread it to actually run it. And you're like, oh, each of these pages takes a second to read because I know exactly what to scan for.
Right.
Yeah. What I don't remember and how everything fits together.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, all that being said, how would people find you and or your games?
Okay. Well, I sell through TTRPG, which is the largest collection of TTRPGs on there. They do print on demand too. So if you want the physical copy of Dybbuks and Dreidels, you could get it there. I have my own website, flourishourfate.com. I also have a website, dybbuksandreidels.com that links to flourishourfate.com / because I'm using some interesting React thing /
You know more about coding than I do, so
that's my day job. Yeah. So I have a website. You could get physical copies in 3 locations. Labyrinth in DC. I think all of the locations of Hex and Co in New York City have 1 copy each because it's mostly a board game cafe, but you can buy games there. And then SideQuest bookstore in Somerville, Massachusetts. My biggest customer by far.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, as someone who does computers for a living, I was very happy when I had sold exactly 128, which is a nice round number for me because it's a power of 2. 64 in person, 64 online. And of those 64, 32 were at SideQuest and 32 were not at SideQuest.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So all of those links that Matthew mentioned will be in the video's description. And you can look forward to seeing more of Matthew and his knowledge be showcased in future videos. So until then, take care, my fellow scholars.